TaxAct's filing software and live tax experts can help small businesses easily knock out their taxes. Actually, our experts can help you find deductions and credits for any sized business. Itty-bitty businesses, medium-sized, really big, mid-sized, small businesses, companies with 0 employees, and mom-and-pop conglomerates. Yep, our tax experts can help all of them. TaxAct. Let's get them over with.
Hey guys, how you doing? It's Mick Tully for World Martial Arts Television. There's so many podcasts out there, but to get somebody that's actually you want to listen to, if you don't know who this guy is, you've never been on the History Channel, and you probably don't know what YouTube is. It's the one and only Doug Marcaida. Doug, thanks for coming on, sir.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
First of all, how did you get into martial arts, and why did you get into martial arts?
Okay, so martial arts, interesting word. If we're talking about fighting that's connected to martial arts, if we're talking about self-defense or the offense of it, I was always fighting. And that's in my younger years. I was born and raised in the Philippines. I grew up as a problem child. I had a lot of issues as a young kid, a very angry kid. During my parents' divorce and both families fighting, I was very angry. So I took out my anger on everyone around me. Everyone. So I got into so many fights, a lot of issues, got kicked out from my schools because to me, just fighting was one of the ways to release my pent-up. I didn't understand how to heal. So martial art classes I've taken as a young kid, I was dabbling a little bit of karate here, a little bit of this, street boxing. We had our neighborhood punching thing with my cousins. I wanted to fight everybody. That kind of discipline was not tolerated by the schools that were teaching it. I didn't have the right attitude, so I never finished anything, right? Fast forward to high school. My father, after the last getting kicked out from another school, my father realized, like, look, you're getting into fights this time, but him being also, born and raised in the Philippines, he goes, high school, nobody fights fair anymore. People carry, knives. We carry ice picks and weapons and all that. I joined the gang, which is not really, they say fraternity. Back home, it's a gang, street gang. So having done that, it put me in a bad light. And so my father goes, you need to learn how to fight, to fight properly. And I was like excited. Great. Let me fight. I want to kick ass. I want to do it nicely. So what was popular at the time that really was around the Philippines was Taekwondo. Now, we do have our Filipino martial arts, right? It was known as Arnis and Eskrima, but that's weapons-based. I didn't want anything to do with weapons. Why? Well, I pretty much got accosted and pretty much had a blade put to my throat where I thought I was going to make it home. And I had sort of a traumatizing experience with blades. I hated it. I was afraid of it. Why can't people just fight normally with their fists and kicks? I'm very good at that. I don't want to see anything with a weapon. So I avoided that. It did curb some of my temper because in the group of Taekwondo that I was doing, there was a sportive action to that. And I was a jock pretty much. I played, football. I played basketball, any kind of sports. That's what my dad did. Go play sports all the time. So Taekwondo also gave me that. But it didn't give me the kind of discipline that I really needed as a human being, as a person. Fast forward, I migrated to the U.S., and then I joined the Air Force, the U.S. Air Force, so that I could get my right to stay in the country. While I was in the military, we had a little martial art club with friends. And so we started going back to kickboxing and then just sparring among ourselves. One of my friends was so good with his empty hands. And this is a time when Steven Seagal came out with Above the Law. I was like, oh, these moves, the hacking and the hitting and everything. I was like, I got to learn this. Well, what is that? Is that like jiu-jitsu and everything else? He goes, oh, it's Kali. Oh, Kali. I love that name. It's like Kali because he's from California. So what is it? He goes, it's Filipino. Huh? I'm Filipino. What the hell are you talking about? Filipino, as in, it's also known as Arnis and Eskrima. Whoa. Arnis and Eskrima. Hold on. You guys train with weapons, right? He goes, yeah. I ain't about the weapon, because then he pulled a butterfly knife. Oh, really? Dude, listen, let's just train boxing. Let's just do the empty hands. That's what I really want to learn. He goes, you want to be good with your hands? Like I am? He goes, good. Learn the weapon. I can't do that, man. I don't want everyone to stab or do anything to anyone that way. I just want to, we'll do it with fisticuffs. No, this is how it's taught.
Yeah.
I'm your friend. I'm not going to hurt you.
Well, you see, you've touched onto something that I'd like, because as a Filipino, you'll have a unique perspective on this, right? So I got into karate, and I it's heresy to say this because I'm a JKD. As I always say, I'm a JKD Kali guy, but my school is the Minnesota Kali group in Coventry. So Rick Fay is my instructor. Mm-hmm. Kali I always liked, because I've seen in a lot of some of the interviews to do the research on you. Jeet Kune Do is it's a personal art, right? And it's all about the person. And I didn't want that. I wanted to be part of a group. So the group mentality I really, really liked. And I was never a Bruce Lee fan either. As I used to say this, but it's pretty awful now, but I used to always say, I was never scared of a Chinese waiter, Doug. You know what I mean? I was always scared of these guys who could bang, right?
Yeah.
And with Bruce Lee, I know he was an amazing martial artist, but I saw Way of the Warrior on BBC in 1982. And I saw Danny Santo, and I just saw the way he moved, and I was like, one day, if I could only get to meet him. Years later, now I'm an instructor with him. He's an amazing human being. But he said something that I want you to expand on if possible. So he's got two things. First of all, he always says, the blade will always inform the empty hand, not the other way round. And then he always references, like we're quite lucky nowadays, because our generation, we can look at Manny Pacquiao and look at him and go, he's a Pinoy boxer. That's when you know that I'm a geeky fanboy here when it comes to martial arts. Because when you see Filipino guys fighting, you go, if they had a karambit in the hands, now I see it. And you see Lomachenko working the same sort of way, and you go, but he's Russian, Ukrainian, but he's from that neck of the woods, right? And it's like, so I don't know whether or not he did Filipino martial arts, but what I'd like is your thoughts on this. Where did it happen that people decided, especially in the West, to immediately think that Kali was more weapons-based? Because the empty hand blows everyone away. And when you mention Silat, they can still believe that Silat has got an empty hand thing, an empty hand part. But with Kali, it's like, oh, yeah. With me, it's always, oh, you're the stick and knife guy. And I'm like, well, I'm actually a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well. And they never say you're the chokey armbari guy. They just say, oh, you're the guy who wears pajamas for that. And then the other one. So as a Filipino, I'd like your thoughts on, first of all, where did it get lost in the funk, right? And do you actually think, because the Philippines are known as a weapons-based, society, for want of a better word, especially bladed, which is quite, I know this is a very long preamble, but Coventry, where I come from now, we're having stabbings every week. And we're not a blade-orientated society. But that also lends me on to the fact that I think if we outlawed blades, people would kill each other with a feather duster or a vacuum cleaner. They'll find something to kill each other with. But why is it with the Filipinos that you somewhere got lost into the mix, that the empty hand arts weren't as prevalent, if that makes sense? I know that's a massive gamble.
But one simple word: survival.
Right.
It's about survival. We Filipinos are about survival. We live in a mountain of trash, and we can survive off that. Westerners can't. They'll get diseases and bacteria. We can live in houses made out of cardboard. We make everything do with something that we don't have the luxuries in the Western world. We can survive that.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about survival, let's go back to our history. We have 7,100 islands. We have warring tribes all the time. So each tribe that doesn't get along with each other is saying, okay, tomorrow we have a battle with that tribe. Son, here's a machete and just do this motion right here. That's all you got. They're going to kickbox you. Come back the next day because we're going to win that. Simply because punches and kicks and grappling have never, ever happened in battle against blades. Somebody ruins the party and shows up with a blade. So it's about survival. It's also called a force multiplier. I can be very good with my hands no matter what. I go up against two guys, one of them knows how to just hold me down or knows how to fight, I'm in trouble. I've got a knife or a pen or a stick and everything else, I will clean house because it's a force multiplier. You can't exchange blows with bladed weapons or impact weapons. You can exchange blows with your fist. So the Filipinos knew this. In stature, we're much smaller. Typically, Filipinos are smaller people, right? When you go up against big people, size matters. So how do you fight somebody so big? You chop him down like a tree with a blade. So it's about survival. When we talk about weapons utilization, it's about this has proven to have the highest percentage of survival. I can fight with my hands. Like my one teacher would say, yeah, we can punch and kick, but why? Stab if he wants to live. Yeah. So it's not that we're a warlike people. As a matter of fact, we took our arts and turned our fighting weapons into an art form so we can actually make us better in life, not bitter in life. So when you have the bladed weapons, we can now approach things in terms of what wields the weapon, our hands. But you see, our hands are for loving. These are the things that make that kinesthetic feel when I hug my kids, when I hold them and everything else. Oh, you're being naughty? I'll take my flip-flops and I'll spank you with it. I'll pick up a stick and I'll hit you with it. There is no human connection there. We always pick up something. If you look at in terms of true combat, when people go, yeah, we're a combative art. Well, true combat is weapons utilization. It's not fighting with your hands. Yeah, that's why we go to war, not empty-handed. If you look at the old representative movies, the first thing that happens during a fight, they go for the weapon. My weapon. What's that? Yeah. My weapon. They don't go, let's go. Right? So that's the mentality there. It's about survival. Now, using weapons is like using something with resistance. I used to think of it as, if you look at track and field athletes, when they're running on the field, right, they have a parachute attached to their back. Those are the weapons. Now, the minute they let go of that parachute, they're 10 times faster. Why? With the edge weapon, I have to know the distance of the edge to my body so I don't get cut. The weight distribution is different. And the weapon to my opponent and the distancing. That changes the way I move. All of a sudden, when I put the weapons down, oh my gosh, I'm so much faster. Yeah. But in many ways, I'm like, I have to be dirtier to get, and dirtier is a relative term, but I have to do the same things with my hands that my weapon can do. Hence, we have dirty boxing. Eye poking, head butting, scratching, biting, pinching, all these other things, because that's what a weapon in my hand could do. It could rip flesh. It could do all that. Boxing, empty hands, elbowing, it's limited. So I'll add that to all these other things. Because when you're thinking about hooking and everything else, it's no different, like you said, with the karambit that I'm stabbing. So here's my hook. Here's with the karambit. Here's with a tomahawk. And the same motion I'm doing all applies. Except, why? Why risk your body from getting hurt? The inanimate tools that I pick up never complain about getting hurt. Now, a lot of us have done this in our fights and end up I got an infection from smashing somebody's teeth. The very next night, I was in IV. It was like I got cellulitis because of dirty mouth and teeth. So I'm like, had I used something like this, I wouldn't have that issue. But this is about survival. Remember, all these things I'm talking about is when I have failed. What do you mean by that? I chose to fight. Yeah. I failed myself, right? Because I don't want to glorify what it is that we do when it comes to violence. I know the difference now. So when I say, oh, what a tough guy, I want to learn that because I was there. I drank the Kool-Aid and I thought that was a badass thing. Now, thank God, no. I failed by doing that, but I understand it. You have to understand violence and study violence in order to protect against it and prevent it from ever happening. A lot of people don't understand that.
Well, you see, you just said three things that made my ADHD brain go flying off in different.
I got one too.
Yeah, don't worry. Hey, we're
in good company.
Hey, I don't need to do 500 arm bars a day, but some reason I'm like, I have to do 500 arm bars. So the first thing that you said was when you were talking about the inanimate object, right? So with me, I've always been fascinated by a screamer. So like the first time I managed to get Heaven 6 working in a drill, and then I was like, this is amazing, but doing it with another human being. And it was the first time ever in martial arts, because it was such a paradox, because it's like, we have to work together to get good. If the minute we try and contest it, you know this, the worst guy to go into a class with you ever is the guy who understands the half beat, and you go, no, let's set up the metronome first, and we go. And we just go, we go. But when you were saying it was so funny, because I was thinking about this with a Western mindset, right? And I'd like your thoughts on this, Doug. you know, when you get two beginners and you teach them, say, first of all, cob, they can handle to a degree, right? So sit count, cob, they can get that. The first two with the tip up, they get that. Then they do tip down, they go, this will never work. And you go, that's later on, we'll park that up. Sometimes that might be a fake. Maybe I've whacked you in the head and then I'm going to take your kneecap out, and they don't understand that. But when we did the Sinawali, what got me was every single person I've ever met in the Western world who does it, they treat stick fighting the same way as I always say, you know, like the guys who do white collar boxing, where they hit each other's gloves, yeah? So they fight each other's sticks. And I would say, no, don't, because you're literally speaking to the guy on the front desk, speak to the manager, speak to Karen. So the whole defanging the snake thing, right? So they fight the stick, and I could never get that. So that was the first thing that you sent me off on a tangent, right? So if you can, and I'm being a real geek about this, has that been your observation with people? And what I always use it as a Rorschach test, because the first guy who hits you on the hand with a stick, he's the guy you want in a fight, but he's not the guy you ever invite round for a barbecue to your house. You know what I mean? Because he goes, this doesn't work. So
what you're talking about is knowing how to do something versus understanding how to do something. Okay? Now, they're called, Filipino martial arts have been called stick fighters. I go, we don't fight sticks. You put a stick on the floor, it doesn't attack me. The beauty of training, first up, we train with rattan sticks. The rattan is fibrous. It's a grass, right? It's fibrous, meaning that when you hit, it absorbs impact. If I went with a hardwood, it would vibrate too much. I'm going to end up with tendonitis. Yeah. Number two, if you start hitting the person that you're training with, they won't come back to class. That was the old school. Yeah. Hard sticks would hit the body. Nobody came back again. I got to go to work the next day. So we hit the sticks to symbolize that is the human body. It is not the stick that we attack. But then we have to also let an art form that grows old with you. I have 90-year-old grandmasters still, because a grandmaster, a person there who's like, I could be sitting here wheelchair bound, I can still pick up a stick and wave it. You see, the thing about Kali, when we talk about force multipliers, a 5-year-old punching and a 90-year-old punching is a 5-year-old punching, a 90-year-old punching. Now, you put a sharp blade in their hand, that's dangerous. It changes. The weapon doesn't care who's wielding it. That's why you'll always be dangerous, right? Yeah. Same thing when you're using a stick. So when you're talking about the heaven six and everything else, they don't understand the effectiveness because no one told them what it is we're doing. That stick is a hit. And it's a stick. We're only making sure that nobody gets hurt. Now, what do you do to preserve your rattan sticks? We put tape over it. Yeah. In many ways, it's like what we would do if I kept on getting injured and I see tape all over my body. So the genius of our old men is we will preserve this so that you can do this till the day you die. Yes. You know, kicking trees, that's great for the young Thai boxer and all that. Let me see you when you're 50s and 60s. How many, Masoyama could do. Masoyama was 1 in a million. Yeah. Right? You don't have that. People grow old, they get issues, they got atherosclerosis and everything. They can get a clot in their blood, all these things. We don't hurt the body. We use inanimate objects to continue training so that I will be a martial artist till the day I die. My body is perishable. So we tend to preserve ourselves by using that. And people who train all the Sinawali, I'll tell you this much, it is taught incorrectly. Yeah. What you know of Sinawali are patterns. Yeah. Everybody knows it. Let's do heaven six. Heaven six, and like heavens to Betsy, that's the alphabet. Once you're done with that and you know how to flow this, and it's a training thing that we do because it's called, in neuro-linguistic programming, it's called mirroring. You move, I move. I move, you move, and when we do this, it's to mirror each other. But that's so that we're safe. And we learn the combination here. But in reality, you're supposed to break away from that because that's how fights happen. But when this is all you know, and that's why I see people in every Filipino martial art picture or something posing with 2 weapons. They can't fight with 2 weapons. They can do drills with 2 weapons because they're so locked into the drills. You're supposed to learn a drill in the beginning. Once you're done, you don't ever do it again. You've already got the attribute in it. You got to make it work like you're fighting. That's why I follow martial arts that spar and look like the way they train. Yeah. So like you were saying, when you have beginners doing Sinawali, let me ask you this. How much time did they just do shadow boxing, working on their form? Yeah. Next, after that, How much do they do with just hitting a target? So they know what impact happens. Oh, they can do that. Now, how much movement as they're doing that? Okay, good. Then you do 2-man. Because that's what you do in boxing. First, you learn proper form of throwing your hooks. And then you do shadow boxing and moving. Then we put the bagging. Bag doesn't fight back yet because I have to be very confident in what I'm doing. Then you have mitts, where you're still doing what I'm calling out. And every so often, I'll put in a tangible right there that you can move. And then eventually, we slowly start to spar. And before you know it, you fight the way you spar. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu the same way. Conditioning, rolling, anything. I'll teach you one technique. And somehow, some way, I want to see that come out.
Yeah.
Fencing. Same thing. That's why I have a problem when I look at certain arts, like how come when they fight or they box, the skills aren't there? Because they want to spar right away. You know what they're doing when they're sparring? Trying to survive.
Well,
they're so afraid of getting hit. But they haven't slowly built the skill to get there.
Well, you see, this is the thing, right? So, literally, I have, and they're very good friends of mine. So I've got to be very careful when I say this, right? So I've got to be very, very careful. I always paraphrase Bob Breen, the legend in the UK, over this, because Bob always says, "Go," and I'll put on a bit of a Cockney accent, you know, in homage to him. He goes, "Yeah, you get these guys, you know what I mean?" He goes, "Yeah, they got like 1,000 techniques." He goes, "No 5, drill 3, own 1," and I'm like, "Bob." And he goes, "Yeah, not the greatest business model ever." He says, "But," and then as I always say to him, I said, "I've got friends of mine who are imprisoned in Hubert, Punio Samrada, 5-count Samrada. Numerado is one of my personal favorites because they get stuck in there, and you do realise Numerado is like 2%. It's like trapping in Jeet Kune Do. Why do you have to spend so much time in it? Because it changes everything. You can get that moment, you go. And you just said something. So I've seen it firsthand. Guys being imprisoned by drills, and they're going, "I'm getting really good." And I'm like, "You're getting really good at that drill." And this is the thing that will lead us onto this, dog. We now know that just the movement of going across the center line with the stick is firing up synapses in your brain that haven't been fired up, because as humans, we're very, very lazy. So instead of reaching over to get something on our left, we're not left-handed, but we'll pick it up with our left. And I love what Guru Dan in Santo said. So there's a friend of mine, he's doing this thing called Cognitive Kali, and it's interesting. But it was like, Guru Dan came out with a great line, because he said, "I was always told that there's magic in this art." And he said, "I heard that." And he said, "What do these old guys know?" But it's like he said, he didn't realize he was training with masters. He thought they were just mates of his dad, smoking cheroots. And then he didn't realize these were grandmasters he was dealing with. But what he said, 150 years ago, magic was what we now call an X-ray, an MRI. It was science that we didn't understand. And he said the Filipinos, they always said there's magic in this. It just brings longevity, which is my answer. And I'd like your thoughts on this. So my answer to all the drills and getting imprisoned, maybe not very good for combat, but very good for balancing up the body, good for just mentally being in a good place. Yeah, without sounding like Qui-Gon Jinn, bringing balance to the force, you know what I mean? So you get a bit of that. So you've got that. But the other thing that you said, and I've heard you say something very similar, which we'll talk about in a bit, but you literally almost said what Bruce Lee said, which was like, liberate yourself from the classical mess. You know, it's that whole... Yeah, you're a martial artist, but can you rook? Can you fight? And the thing is, a real fight looks horrible. Like the best MMA fights that you ever see, they're horrible looking, you know, because it's not supposed to look good. It's effective. But as I always say, C4 is effective, but, is it a good thing, really? So the two things are, first of all, have you seen this correlation in like well-being and stuff in just doing Kali? And then the other one is like, would you be an advocate of the no 5, drill 3, own 1?
Yes, in many ways. So here's the thing. In my journey of martial arts, I've studied under martial art teachers to learn the art. Many of them taught me differently. Some were very about the form. about the function, about the drills, about all these different combinations and techniques. And those were from a martial arts system point of view. And I studied under real killers, people who've actually done it.
Yeah.
And that was because of who they were connected to. One in particular made his son take martial arts, yet he himself was a regular guy. But every time we're training, I always looked at him. I felt his aura, his energy, smiling all the time, but never showing that. Finally, he took a liking to me and he brought me over and he told me a lot of things about his life, about the gangster life. He was a gangster. They come from money. He goes, I will never, this is martial arts. I want my son to be a martial artist. Oh, with all the deadly techniques we're doing with the knife, but that never happens, man. We will ambush you. We know you're a martial artist. You're dead because we'll invite you to drink, or when you're done, we will always ambush you. You cannot stop my ambush. Your martial arts skills mean nothing to us. As a matter of fact, as a martial artist, it's probably you have discipline, that you will not fight us. You can hold back. That's what I want for my son. I don't want my son to know what I know. Simplistic. There was nothing complicated about it. Fighters will fight. A true killer. You slap somebody and you meet a true killer and you're done. So we don't know that mentality. How do you know this? Go to jail. Like you said, imprisoned. People who never practice don't have the discipline and knowing what they could do with the inanimate objects or the training that they do. That's why a natural assault with simple assault will get you there and you're done. You're in jail. Very effective is reality-based training. Because it comes with the screaming and it's got all the chaos and everything. And simple. When the adrenaline's going on, that's real. And you're at this level because you've got and you're going to kill and everything else. Now go home and hug your child. Can't. Now. You're feeling that. I felt the power. Oh, yeah, good. Now, let's do some brada. Let's do numerada. Let's do hubad and everything else. Oh, man, that was awesome training. Right? Now you're bringing yourself back to normal with the drills. There's fighting there, but it's choreographed. It's choreography because that's the exchange of energy as you're teaching and laughing, as you're calming down. The real killing is simple. Violence does not need skill to be effective. How many black belt jiu-jitsu guys have been shot and stabbed in Brazil? Same thing in Muay Thai. Alex Go, the great kickboxer that I was a big fan of. How many of my grandmasters? Think about Villabril, not Villabril, Johnny Lacoste, and how he died. Violence needs no skill. That will not serve you in anything to think that your martial arts will save you. It will save you because you avoid violence. You learn the discipline and the aura of opening yourself up to feeling this is not a good situation. The gift of fear, like Gavin de Becker talks about. We have numbed ourselves with technology, multitasking, telephony, all this technology has numbed our sixth sense of combat. Yet you go to countries that don't have this technology. They're very much animist. They're very much in nature. And you talked about the black magic. My grandmasters, now you'll know their names, I'm just going to mention them, and they're all in the same circles. You saw, especially in that warrior, the Filipino masters in there, they're all into the black magic. I know that because some of my teachers were there fight. They go, I don't know about this, but he's got amulets. So to the other hand, they've got bulong, which is like incantations that they were doing it. They have these potions that they rub. They have all these writings in Latin around their bodies that they carry about. But they're good with the blade, yet they do that because their aura, their sixth sense is operating. The whole idea there is that, we are into now I'm a Westerner pretty much by standards because I've left the Philippines already. I've lived in the US longer than I have in the Philippines. But when I was there and I see the stories about the blades and all these things about the dark arts and all these mysticism and all that exists over there and they truly believe in it. Now, shall we go with science to explain it? Yeah, of course. Then you start to realize, this is why it works. This is why it's different once again. And there are times when you just can't explain it. Yeah. Because by the time you figure it out, your teacher will probably just stab you and goes, well, why'd you stab him? He asked too many questions. I don't have the scientific answer and walk away.
But well, you see, you said something. So regular listeners will know this because I've mentioned it before. It blew my mind the first time I ever spoke to a Filipino regarding an anting. Yeah. And I was like, what is this? And he said, as you said, little amulet about this big. And I said, what's it? They go, sacred text. And I'm like, and what does it mean? And me, because I've got a really analytical brain, I'm thinking, is this like just a self-fulfilling prophecy? You know, it's like maybe having a tattoo that says, I'm really tough on my forearm, therefore, ergo, I become tough. And that was the first time that I ever realized that I've got to quote Rick Fay on this. Rick Fay was saying this about right now in the world, that there's so much drama, but there's always been drama. But the thing is, Doug, we've never been so connected, and everyone's got a platform now. Yeah, so like the world was angry, but you weren't able to go and tell 5,000 people you're angry, like, you know, which we can do now, right? But Rick said something really, really interesting, because Rick said, our biggest mistake as Westerners is to believe that everyone else has the same morality as you, the same understanding of what culture is as you. And by the way, that's not trying to be racist or anything like that. Mm-hmm. It's just saying you didn't grow to make it a bit easier for all of us to understand is, Doug, we have friends who went to private school and they've had a very, very privileged upbringing. But we take them to meet some of our mates who are construction workers on a Friday evening, right? Mm-hmm. They're not going to be able to live there because they don't know that environment. But it was like you said there about the Philippines. It's which is going to lead me on to something, because I know that some of the systems that you've been in, like obviously Paquita Tertia, you mentioned in a lot of interviews that you trained in. I'd like to know what it was like training with you when you were training, when you first started in any system, really. But for the simple reason that I've heard Guru Dan Inosanto say this a few times, where he said the first time he started training, and I think he'd done some stuff with Ed Parker, so it'd be some sort of kubudo or something, Doug, yeah, with some double stick. And apparently one of his uncles, which could be any one of Sebastian's mates, turned around and went like, Danny, you do the click, click. And he went, what? He goes, oh, that's click, click training. And he goes, what do you mean? He goes, with us, it's whoosh, ah! And then that's the training. There's no click, click, right? So the reason I did all of that was to just set the scene. When you started training, were you getting the raps on the knuckles as well? Or as a Filipino, did you get a little bit of an easier ride?
No, we have to hit. You have to feel it to make it real. If you don't experience it. So we have just when we stand there, your job is only simply to deflect, and we'll throw all the hits at you.
Right.
Because you need to be, it's slowly thing, right? How do I know that the first time I get clutch, I'm going to cower and down and everything else? So you have to inoculate yourself, not to the point to where you're injured, but to the point to where fear is like, oh, it's not the end of the world to get punched. It's not the end of the world to get hit with something. Now, what do we do to get there? We also introduce humor. Humor solves everything. Laughter is the best medicine. How is that? You know how when you get cut, oh, everybody, oh my God, he got cut. Let's put a Band-Aid. Everybody call the honey. And the kid's like, it's just a little cut. No, you get hit. Oh, man, that's what happens when you're not careful and everything else. Like, oh my God, call 911. But anything, so the person's like, I'm sure. So, yeah, I mean, no, there is none of that. It is through experience is the best teacher. I mean, I didn't know I didn't have a ground game until I kept on getting choked out. I had to be choked out in order to realize I don't have a ground game. I better start learning. And as soon as I found an instructor in BJJ, I go, oh, no, we're going to start this because he wanted to have an exchange. I'll teach him Kali and he'll teach me BJJ. When he got to that, I go, I have one request. Can you get on the mount? And I want to learn how to defend the mount. And can you get on my back? And I want to learn the rear naked choke. That's all I want to learn, because I don't have the time to master this, to be able to perfect it. I committed to Kali, and that takes a lifetime of mastery. But this is my weak game. I want to learn. And what did I learn from that? Relax.
Yeah.
Relax. Learn how to move and learn how to go with the flow. Now, here's how the science of the arm works and around it, and airway circulation and breathing. And that was the best gift I had. But instead of, I don't want to learn that, I keep getting choked out. No, I keep getting choked out. Let me understand the science of being choked out. I had to identify my weakness. So, yeah, we need this. Yes. So sparring, when I was introduced to it the right way, Sparring is nothing more than another training module. It's to gauge how you react with resistance and unchoreographed moves. But there's a science to sparring also. We call it technical sparring before you go to all full-out sparring. Why? Because all full-out sparring can lead to survival mode. I'm afraid of getting hit. I don't want to get hit. I don't want to lose and everything else. We have to do technical sparring. First, you're only supposed to learn this with a stick jab. That's all you're allowed to do. I don't care whatever it is, but you can only do stick jab. Why? Because then you have to have the confidence that the stick jab will serve you in everything. Then now it's all the circular stuff. That's all you're allowed to do. You're not allowed to do anything but that. You have to survive with that one tool. Now you got to do everything with your left hand. What? Yeah, well, okay. So it's that whole thing. You inoculate yourself to be able to use it functionally. So that was the beautiful thing that I had with my teachers. It was trial by fire. We had to get hit. And it wasn't a masochistic or sadistic thing. It was our teacher who truly believed that if you don't know about this impact and getting hit stuff, then you will always be fearful of it. When you overcome that fear, then you're free to do what you want.
Oh, Doug, trust me, in a parallel universe, me and you are BFFs forever, man. Because literally,
I am blessed to have had so many teachers.
Yeah.
And Guru Dan is my idol. So people go, you seem to be such a nice guy, because that's the guy I wanted to emulate.
Yeah.
He's the one I actually wanted to emulate. I've had a lot of teachers who are not like him. I've had other good ones, but they were just not that gentle feeling of where he made martial arts make you a better human, not a bitter human. Well, that's the man I want to be.
Well, you said something. So there's two quotes I've got to give about Rick Fay that you've just hit on. So the first one is when he talked about Danilo Santo once, and he said, he says it's 11:30 at night, and you pull up on the side of the road, and you can get directions from. And he always, I love the way that Rick is, because Rick's really vague. Whoever the cage fighter du jour is this week, he said that. Some muscled up guy with tap out t-shirt on and tattoos, and you ask him for directions, or do you ask Danilo Santo for directions? Which one is going to be the most agreeable one, right? And then you said something when you were talking about jiu-jitsu. So Rick was I believe Rick Fay was one of the first blue belts at very least in the state of Minnesota back in the 90s. And when because obviously I started in Kali, then I drank the Kool-Aid for jiu-jitsu, but I only did it because I was so awful at it. And I was like, I have to get good. I couldn't, I mention this all the time. A good friend of mine, he's a business partner now. He was the first ever guy to do knee on belly onto me. And I remember getting into the car and wanting to cry, because I was like, I can't live in a world where other humans can do that. And if humans can do that, I'm going to be the human doing it to people. They're not going to do it to me. So that's what drove me on. But Rick came out with something really smart, which he said, he got a blue belt. Yeah. He goes, but then I rolled with John Machado once, and I realized if that's what a black belt is, I don't have the time, I don't have the inclination to get that far. And knowing he knew what he wanted to be, which was, like, again, Kali's the one. So that leads me on to something which you, apart from our dear friend Mal Morney, got to give him a shout out there, Will. So you and Mal Morney are literally the only two people that I've seen on YouTube that actually can teach and do martial arts, like realistically in the real world, have these ridiculously huge numbers that people want to watch. So I'm trying to work out, how do you get people to do that? Yeah, because it's a pretty good businessing model anyway, right? But the other one as well is you and Mal are the only two that would actually, in a nice way, question. You've got a great clip on the validity of Filipino martial arts. And I like the way you approached it on certain martial arts, by the way. So I like the way you approached it, which was you approached it from we're not talking about, is it beautiful? We're not talking about if it's holistic. We're talking about, does it actually do what it says on the tin, which is, will this work against a non-compliant human, right? And my question to you is first of all, how did you get that foray into YouTube? Because I don't think it was by accident. And then secondly, your thoughts on the unrealistic nature of some of the stuff people put out there.
I got into YouTube because this is my passion. I love what I do. It was a gift from my family to do this because every time I do it, teach, go to another country and everything else, I'm not with them. So in that process, I celebrate it. I say, okay, thank you for this gift. This is what I'll do. And to me, it's art, and I'll put it on videos. I celebrated what I love. So that's why I started putting it on YouTube. And it's the inception. I just did that. In terms of the fluff you see that's out there, in the beginning, you start to see that the fluff that is out there is an expression that people will put out, but I am not there to judge. Let me tell you why. You should be able to learn from everybody, from the worst thing that you ever saw. One of my teachers goes, don't be so stuck up that you think that somebody out there who has nothing, who you feel doesn't know how to fight and everything else, has nothing to teach you. You should learn from the person who's a beginner because they will ask you the right and truest questions. Now, if you see something that's full of bullshit that you think, then make it work for you. That's a challenge. You think that's bullshit? Okay, make it work. Now, better than that, maybe you should also share a little bit of your knowledge with them nicely. We're humans. Humans don't like to be told their stuff stinks or it's bullshit. Approach them nicely and say, okay, may I share something with you? And trust me, they will appreciate it if you approach it nicely. Now, why to do that? Because it's their passion. They're doing something. Like me, I celebrate what I do on videos. How do you think I'm going to feel when somebody goes, that's all bullshit, that will never work? How do you think I'm going to feel? Really? Let me show you. But look what it's done. It's ruined my harmony.
Yeah.
Watch someone, and this has happened to me, and I've done it to someone, to where they're so beautiful, so proud of their work, and they present, he goes, that shit, it stinks, that'll never work. Look at their eyes.
Yeah.
You feel better now about yourself. Is this what the martial arts has taught you? Is this what being a human has taught you? To put down other people, to make them feel less than who they are because you think you're better or it'll never work. Is that what it's taught you? No. Martial arts is not about the technique or anything. It's about what you are as a human being. And people need to get to that point. I told you, violence needs no skill. You think that person may just say, okay, fuck it, then I won't use that. How about this? Stab you in the throat and walk away. That worked, huh? Did I need skill for that? Because you just pissed me off by just telling me that my beautiful thing that I shared with you and created for you, you just destroyed. Why? To make you feel yourself feel better. And then this is what I found in the old days, because trust me, I speak from experience. I used to be that kind of jerk. I was that asshole who would tell that I'm going to work, we're better, our system is better and all that. I used to be that asshole until I found out that I don't need to be that asshole. I was only that asshole, and because I copied my teachers. And number two, it's based on pure insecurity.
Yeah.
Confident people will just let it be. I know what I've got. I know what that's good for you. I let it be. Look at Guru Dan. Guru Dan will never, ever say something bad about anyone. And I caught him too, because I asked him about someone who is deemed terrible.
Yeah.
And his answer, yeah, they're pretty good at what they do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, there's the lesson. People go, you can't trust it. No, you don't get it. That's someone who's very confident, but understands the true meaning of what martial arts is about. It's not about the fight. It's about living and being a better person than that.
Well, you see, Guru always says the class, he says, your driving motivation is love. He said, people think that's a paradox. He says, love of your family, love of your tribe, love of your culture, love of the people who are around you, your friends. He said, that's the only time you would ever really want to fight. And it's funny when you were saying about Guru Dan being your idol, because you literally said something that's very similar. I don't know if you ever heard this story, but it's a very famous story. Guru Dan was teaching a seminar once, and I want to say it was at Marina Del Rey at his own school, but it might not have been, so correct me if I'm wrong. But there was a homeless guy, walked in off the street, went in, and obviously guys were like, whoa, who's this guy? Who's this guy? And he came in, I think the guy was maybe had a few drinks as well. And he went, no, you're doing it all wrong. You're doing it all wrong. And they're trying to get this guy out. And Guru's like, no, wait a minute. What's he saying? What's he saying? And this guy comes in and he's going, no, you're doing it all wrong. You're stepping and you're sliding. You should be sliding and stepping. And Guru said, wait a minute. And then in front of everyone, he turned around and goes, he's right. He's actually right. And my teacher, Terry Barnett, told me that story. And he said, everyone was like, he can learn from a guy who's homeless. He goes, that's the lesson we all need to learn, and it is really funny. So now, before there's a few things I've got to touch on, but again, you got to be very careful. Like, as I said, I'm a JKD Kali guy, but I'm not really. I'm a stealth JKD guy. I'll say it because it keeps people happy. But when I say to a guy who's just predominantly a Kali guy that he's more JKD, like that can sometimes upset people, right? But with Doug, I don't think with you it won't be, because I've watched a few of your interviews, and famously, I don't know if you know the story about how the Jeet Kune Do name came up, where Guru Dan and Bruce were driving down the road, and Guru Dan says, we need to find a name for this systemized training that we're trying to bring out. And he said, and he goes, Jeet Kune Do is Cantonese, the way of the intercepting fist. And Guru Dan, I've heard him say it several times, it's always the same thing, where he goes, Guru turned around and went, that's amazing. And Bruce went, no, stop, forget it. And he went, what? He goes, now we've given it a name, now people want ownership. Now it can't be this free-flowing thing, which in one of your interviews, first of all, Marcaida Kali came about not by you. That was a name that was given by your students, right? And then you said something which I really like, which people will come and train with you. And then I like what you said about their final test. Yeah, their final test. So if you can share that, because the way you'll say it would be way better than me.
Well, when I left a couple of systems, it was all about the system. It was all about the politics, and it's all about trying to be part of who's ranked in that system. I started using generic Kali. As a matter of fact, from Kali, it became Rochester Kali from where I was from, and that's all it was until when I started doing seminars, my student was bringing me in and says, no, we want Marcaida Kali, and he was telling everybody, because it's for commerce. We got to put the Marcaida thing in there. It'll draw people in. Okay, fine. But my students that I was doing it, I said, we're going to keep on training and everything else. But at the end of the day, your very last thing is, once you're done with my system, I want you to create your own system. That's your last test. Create your own system. Put your name in. Don't carry mine, because you suck and I don't want you ever to carry my name. I was kidding. But here's the thing. You put the time in. I did not. I am nothing more than a guide. I gave you suggestions. I taught you how to think for yourself. You see, one of the things that I like about this is that you were put into this world to carry and do what you've got. I have my own journey. Now, you can say I learned it from Doug and everything. He was my guide and teacher and everything else. But this is who I am. This is what I've done, because everyone, I don't care if they say I am a purist. I do exactly what my teacher did and everything else. What about his colleagues and other teachers? How can a 6'7" guy teach the same system that a 5'5" guy was teaching?
Yeah,
we change. Now, how can a boxer here who has boxing experience, puts in Panantukan, does the Kali stuff, compared to a Wing Chun martial artist who only did Wing Chun, no boxing, and put the Filipino martial arts? How can they teach the same system? You will always put a piece of you, then stand up and be recognized for that. You put the time in. I was not put into this world to carry somebody else's name. This is my journey. It's all personalized. So when they ask me about the system, I go, it's never the system, it's the person. It's always the person and what they put in. And you just enjoy that. I studied under 6 first-generation instructors in Bikini before I went to the Grandmaster and studied under him directly. Everyone, we did a lot of the same things, but everyone had a different take on it. My teacher was a business math college student. I learned everything in terms of strategies, math, and everything else. One was a court officer, all the court officer. One was a Chinese martial artist and healer, all Chinese martial arts and healer versions, all these different things. When I went to the Grandmaster, totally different. Let's make shit up, Doug. Boom. We're Filipinos. We're gonna make it. Wait. I studied all these things from the West, from your students. I knew all these different, the 64 attacks and all this. Nah, that's for the Western mind. You're Pinoy, I'll teach you it. This is what we'll do. Let's make it up. He didn't say make it up, but I could see it in his eyes. So that's what's in the end. If you're going to make it up, teach me how to make it up. It's one of those things, right? I will teach you how to create a system and you're set for life.
Yeah.
But then I go, but what if, am I making it up? And it was like, yeah, you can make anything up your own. Well, what do you think? Let's go back in time from every grand martial artist in there. Eventually, you're going to get to a point where somebody made it up. before him and the teacher, unless he came from the heavens and truly no. And it's okay because they have the skill. Now, this I know. I've met enough martial artists in the Philippines who learned from watching kung fu movies and were good and were amazing. What's wrong with that? Did he make it up? No, we learn from watching.
Yeah.
If I watch my teacher right now do stuff and I do it my version and everything else, am I not just making it up like the kid who watched it from a kung fu movie? It's the same thing. Everything is self-taught. Everything is self-taught. Why? Because it's me teaching myself. Whether I had somebody in front of me or a video or books, it's me. That's why I told my students, you can make it up yourself. Why? You have to defend it, whether it works or not.
Yeah.
That's where I come in. My job is to give you, there are no secret techniques. The secret is in how you train things.
Stuff that you're doing is firing off, right? So in one of your interviews, you were talking about the gift of martial arts, right? And understanding it and then paying it forward. The one thing that you did say was, once you've got it, you've got to share it because it'll die with you otherwise, right? And I want to say it's Salvador Dali. I don't know who said it, but you've got two reasons in life. The first reason is to discover your gift. The second reason is to give away your gift. And that's the one that people don't want to do that in martial arts. And then the thing that you said about the made up bit, that really got me thinking, because I've got so many friends of mine in martial arts who are musicians, right? And they don't seem to have any problem in having their own personal interpretation of a song. Yeah, when you do that, you're a virtuoso. Oh man, you're amazing. But you do that martial arts and like, wait a minute, this is heresy. Why aren't you following this guy? And again, I've seen it in, and I don't want to, all of my karateka friends, it's really funny because they were in a really dogmatic system. And I don't know whether or not people have just given up or they've died. I don't know. But karateka now are more open-minded than nearly any of the martial artists I know, the guys who have stuck with it. And I think maybe it's just the fact that they've seen the course out. Instead of the 4 years to black belt, they've just stuck with it and gone, and they've just found it in there. Because yourself, it's like, I've got to share this with you. My dear friend, my first ever instructor was a karate instructor. And he said to me, he goes, come down and teach. First of all, it was just BJJ. And then he said to me, I said to him, I teach the Kali, and you named your son Lee after Bruce Lee. We could do some of the Jeet Kune Do as well. He went, what? And the Jeet Kune Do, unfortunately, as I've said before, Bruce Lee was a 32-year-old guy who'd had a limited amount of real fights in the real world. Some of the stuff he was really smart. So Ping Choi Gua Choi, you're fighting a load of karate guys. They start off with that Kibudachi stance, with the front down, bring it down, trap, genius. Thought it was ace. But Kali, completely different, right? So I went in there, we're doing some parry and bridge, I'm doing the Gaji, doing a few gun tins and stuff. And my instructor turned around, he went, I've just discovered we have all that in the bunkai of karate. And I went, yeah. You got to remember, you're teaching lots of people, you need to do this. When you're doing 2 or 3 people, you can whisper. Otherwise, you can shout. And it's really funny because martial arts it should be the gift that keeps on giving, but it's the gift that keeps on hoarding. In my opinion, so I just see so many people who don't want to share it. So this is going to lead me on to with you. How did you make the transition from sharing your martial arts to then becoming a weapons designer, to then finally, as most people who know who you are, getting on Forged in Fire? So how did it go from the jump from martial artists to manufacturing the weapons to then finally being brought in as the judge?
While I was doing my Kali thing, I happened to have a connection in the Philippines with a panday or a bladesmith.
Right.
So making that connection, I started to design things based on my knowledge of how to fight with it. Would it be great to have a knife designed this way and everything so we can do it? Would it be great to that? And we'd send it to him. He'd make it. He sent it through drawings, through all these things. And then we'd use it based on martial arts skill, everything. But I knew how to wield. I knew how to adjust. But I didn't understand the science of ergonomics of wielding a weapon. That came later on when I started working with professional companies. I first started with K-Bar. I have a brand new blade coming out with K-Bar this summer called the Blade of Honor for the Medal of Honor recipients.
Wow.
Then I started doing stuff with Fox and Russian blades and everything, because by then I already understood different designs, different reasons for how you wield it. It's really about how you wield it. A weapon is only as good as availability at time of need. Because I look back at my designs and I go, man, these are terrible handles, because I didn't understand that. After doing that and, field testing some of the stuff, then I got invited to Forge and Fire. Now, all of a sudden, it's my cycle of knife instead of cycle of life. I learned about the blade, faced my fear about the blade first because I was afraid of that. Then I learned to conquer that fear. Then I learned to train with it offensively, defensively. Then I started designing blades to complement that, manufactured blades. And then after that, I got to understand how it was made and forged. And that completed my cycle. Now I got to understand it, because now when you're forging and developing a blade, it brought me to many cultures and the way the blades are viewed and the understanding of weapons from all over the world. And that pretty much, made it go full circle. So very blessed to be able to do that.
Well, again, this is the geek in me. Daniel Lanero was the first person that I ever trained with that he highlighted the fact that most martial arts are almost like a physical representation of a culture if you look at it. So if you look at karate, it's like you see someone doing a kata, that's like having a conversation with like a businessman from Nissan, right? And then kung fu, that's like speaking to a Chinese guy, right? Then the Filipino was the one that got me, because it's like a lot of people don't understand that I'm a real sad man. Because I've got three sons, all three of them work in academia. My two eldest boys are both history they were history teachers. They're they're head teachers now. But they're like, history fascinates me. And the Philippines was the one, because it's the only country in the world that has repelled every single foreign invader throughout history, right? It's
no.
time. Huh?
No, we did not. We absorbed them. We start off with the Spanish company. We were ruled by the Spanish for 3 centuries. That's a long time.
Yeah.
And without a fight, we had battles, but next thing the Americans came because we were sold to them by the Spaniards. So we were under their rule. And then the Japanese invaded us, and we were under for 3 years. It was until we got our independence from that. So what does that tell me about a Filipino, that happened in history? We will absorb and live within you like a parasite. But we may not win the battle, but we will absorb and become you and be better parts of you, and we will destroy you from the inside.
When I said repel, as soon as I said it, I was like, well, not really, because even the name of your country is King Philip of Spain, right?
Exactly.
That's the first.
You think of the Japanese.
Yeah, exactly, right. And then obviously, famously, and I only know this through Guru Dan, about the Leathernecks, when they went there, and the first thing they did was, after about the second time the guys realised that there was a bolo coming flying at them on an angle 1 and an angle 2, they became Leathernecks. Why? Because they were getting their heads chopped off. And then when I teach Kali, I always, especially if I do stick and knife work, which I always say, look, I've never ever had to board a ship, so I don't really understand. I understand what the technique, and I love the tie-ups, and I think they're amazing and they're beautiful and they're great. But I always explain, I say, look, right, Ferdinand Magellan went around the world. I said, Marco Polo went and saw some stuff. Columbus went and saw some stuff. Magellan kicked ass across the world. And then when he got to the Philippines, every time he jumped in, it was like, and it's very similar to how New Amsterdam arrived, where it was like, you're going to have to pay taxes. So like with the Stuyvesants in New York, right? So I know you're a bit of a New York guy. So they go, you're going to have to pay taxes, right? So it's like this, you pay taxes to Holland, but we're England now, mate. What do you want to do? Do you want to go down and be with your dad down in Greenwich Village in that jail with the guy with the one leg, your dad, or pay us taxes? So of course, usually go, yeah, okay, no problem. So Magellan's there, and and everywhere he went, same answer. No. You're scary, but we're more scared of Lapu. And then, as I always say, he went all around the world. He didn't even get on dry land in the Philippines because he was in that skiff boat. And pleased to meet you. Chopped his head off, did it. So maybe repel might not be the best word.
Yeah, well, like I said, right? Filipinos are very malleable people. Let me put that. Why? We're survival. If I fought the Spaniards as a Filipino and they have armor, they have weapons, they have gunpowder and everything else, which we know that we can't beat that firepower with bamboo sticks and swords that we can. We're very limited. So let's let them come into our country and let's absorb them and live within them. Let's become part of them. Like I said, we will be the parasite that will kill you from within. In that process, we have become the most multicultural country in Southeast Asia. We are, now look at Japan. Japan only did what Japanese did for so long. They've repelled everything. They stay very true to their culture. Filipinos, we have Spanish blood in us. We have Chinese blood with us. We have Malaysian blood in us. We have Indonesian blood with us. We have different kinds of cultures. You go to the Philippines, we speak English. We have 300 dialects, which are really languages. We're a little bit of everything. Now, let's talk about the Filipino as a culture. We've been in the United States since the late 1700s. Do you know how long that is? Yet, we are not considered Americans in this country. Why? Because we're quiet. We'll build the railroads. We'll work the fields. We're pretty much all over the healthcare field as nurses. Yet we're quiet. Why? That's the Filipino culture. Don't be making too much loud. You work within your means. You do your best. You succeed in everything else, but you assimilate. Filipinos are that. Why? When you assimilate, you survive.
Yeah.
Bottom line.